Hey everyone, before Renegades rolls around, a lot of you have been coming to my comment section and, returning players are like, yo, I just got back into the game because I'm getting, geared up for Renegades. And I wanted to know, is there any weapons I should be focused on? Any specific legendary armor sets I should be focused on before, the DLC comes out and maybe I'm not able to get them anymore. So today, before Call to Arms is over, because I know there's like 1 weekend left of Call to Arms, I decided I'd make a little guide on exactly what you might want to farm before the DLC is over. So on the right side here, I have a nice little list: primary, special, power, legendary armor, so you can follow along if you'd like. I'm also going to go over all the perks that I think are relevant on all these weapons and why you might use them in the next DLC, as well as maybe in the current DLC if you're playing before Renegades comes out. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with the primaries. So primaries, a lot of low priority stuff here. None of the stuff is like really super high priority, to be honest. Drang, I think it's underrated, right? Good archetype. Sidearms have underrated damage profiles. They fill the role of an SMG pretty well with a better damage profile, and they're kind of suited for like the same kind of engagement range. This thing, you have like loose change, heal clip, incandescent, just pretty typical perks that you would take on a primary like this. But I find heal clip sidearms to be kind of underrated if you're looking specifically for a primary to use. But again, I say medium here, but I say that kind of liberally. It's not super important that you farm a Drang or anything like that. Okay, next we have Agape over here. This is specifically for Lucky Pants usage. I wouldn't really recommend using a heavy burst, especially given that a lot of people are going to be choosing to use like heal clip or rewind on this gun. Manual reload on heavy bursts, I'm sure if you've used this gun before, extremely slow. So I wouldn't really recommend using it for like a heal clips, consistent primary to use during regular gameplay, especially if you're not on Lucky Pants. Lord knows we're going to get like new hand cannons next season in this slot and probably in the kinetic slot too. So, not super important, but if you're a hunter player and, you want a damage option for Lucky Pants that is going to be reliable for next season too, that's an option to pick up. But obviously Kepler stuff is probably still going to be accessible next season. So no need to worry about it if you don't get one right now. Phoneutria, spread shot hand cannons. I've been like spreading the gospel of spread shot hand cannons as of late. They are far and away the best legendary primary archetype of weapon in this game right now because they just hit insanely hard. Like their minor DPS is crazy, their elite DPS is crazy. They have decent engagement range. I feel like a lot of Destiny engagements where people would say, oh, scout rifles have better range and stuff like that. In the past couple like contest environments, really spread shots are appropriate for the vast majority of engagement ranges that you're playing. So their range is really not an issue compared to other hand cannons, and they obviously hit very hard compared to your typical hand cannon archetype. So I'm a big fan of spread shot hand cannons. Obviously, there's a lot of room to grow here when it comes to perk pools, but you still have stuff like, incandescent for solar synergy. You have like surrounded, because, with this hand cannon, you're probably going to be playing around a lot of ads. You have 1-2 punch if you're using it with like a melee build. So yeah, if you want a primary for like primary ad clear purposes, I think spread shots are pretty decent. They obviously do take a little bit of getting used to, but they're pretty good. You have Aureus Neutralizer, the spread shot in the other slot. This one's more of like a damage and build crafting like specialist. It's less of like a raw ad clear kind of weapon. So obviously you have some stuff like, Grave Robber 1-2 punch, you have Trench Barrel, you have the Vorpal Cascade roll for the Lucky Pants like single mag crazy dump thing. So that's even better than Ariana swapping right now, as of right now. So yeah, for Lucky Pants DPS next season, if you want to try out like a specialist role, that's an option. Vorpal Cascade extended appended mag with the enhancement as well. So that's an option. Not super important, again, low priority. Aisha's Embrace saw some pretty cool usage during the Day 1 Epic Desert Perpetual race. I'm sure you guys saw that for like debuff extension. I do think debuff extension stonks are going to go down a little bit next season. Bungie has already been coy about like the tether changes, and there's undoubtedly going to be other changes as well next season that are going to affect debuffing. So, the role is like shoot to loot withering gaze. Everyone's kind of seen it at this point. If you want to farm for one, you can. I doubt it's going to exit the trials pool next season because I think it was literally just brought in this season. So you can probably farm for it next season, but if you want to farm for one now, that's like an idea. But again, low priority, not super important. Antedate and the next SMG we're going to talk about, these are kind of going hand in hand. These are really just for DPS with Peacekeepers. I mean, you can use them for like ad clear, but Antedate, it's fine for ad clear. It's not like amazing or anything like that. Obviously, the role is like rewind target lock with extended or like another mag booster. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, that PKs are going to be super meta next season. So this is not a crazy important pickup, which is why, earlier this season, if I put Antedate in like low priority in a shopping list, I would have been eviscerated. But obviously, I think we've come to realize that, PKs are probably not going to be the meta going into next season. There's a lot of other stuff that is probably going to come into play. So you can farm one if you want. It's a pretty solid weapon regardless. but obviously, you know, you have to go into the raid and stuff like that, so it's not the easiest weapon to farm in the world. So yeah, that's Antedate. We got MIDA Mini-Tool, which I just mentioned, kind of fills the same role. If you don't have a Yeartide, I didn't include Yeartide in this list. Anything that's not currently farmable, it's not in this list. So stuff like Yeartide, stuff like Arcane Embrace, not going to be mentioned here. But MIDA Mini-Tool, it is currently available. And I don't know how long, you know, how much longer it's going to be available for. This thing has Heal Clip, Incandescent, Burning Ambition. You have Aggregate Charge for DPS. You have Attrition Orbs for DPS. It's just missing Chaos Reshaped. So I don't know. I mean, Aggregate Charge is maybe arguably like a more consistent damage perk for, you know, sustained DPS anyway. But yeah, MIDA, I think if you want a solar SMG, this is one of the better ones that we have right now. And it's actually currently obtainable, unlike Yeartide, like I mentioned. So pretty decent. Let's move on to our final primary here, that is, you might be surprised about this one. This is actually the Trials Auto Rifle, Everburning Glitz. I do think people sleep on certain primary archetypes. I think rapid fire autos are pretty decent, actually. They, if I'm not mistaken, outshine the best SMG archetypes when it comes to like red bar ad clear score in my spreadsheet. So surprisingly, pretty decent. Obviously a bit more awkward to use at closer ranges, but procs attrition orbs pretty quickly. Kinetic tremors, you know, good scaling on this archetype as well. So if you're interested in like a multi-muck alternative and you like playing at further ranges, Everburning Glitz, again, lowest of the low priority, but I thought I'd bring it up because it was on the list of seasonal primaries, and you know, I thought it was decent. I think it was a decent shout. Obviously, you know, multi-muck is going to be more powerful and more applicable than this thing, but multi-muck is not currently available, so I thought I'd bring it up. Okay, let's move on to the special weapons. A bit of a shorter list here. And our first high priority weapon, which I don't think is surprising anyone, but if you're genuinely like returning to this game and you haven't played Edge of Fate at all, Mint Retrograde is a Rocket Pulse. It's the first of its kind, and it is very, very powerful. It's very, very powerful. Rocket Pulses are receiving a slight nerf next season, but will no doubt still be an essential part of the meta, regardless of whether you play endgame content or low tier content. Just a very, very powerful weapon. So yeah, you're looking for rewind, bait, honing on this thing. Some people like Master of Arms as well, or Chain Reaction, or One for All for ad clear purposes. This gun really just has a very tight perk pool. And honestly, if I go into like the multi-select mode here, so give me a second here, you just go something like Rewind, Hatchling. You can even run Envious for ammo generation. Some people like doing that. And then maybe like Bait, Honing, and Master of Arms, or Bait, Honing, and One for All. And then you basically have a one-stop shop for everything you would ever need a Rocket Pulse for in the kinetic slot. Usually when Bungie introduces new archetypes to Destiny, they tend to like underpower their perk pool, if that makes sense, when they first come out. For example, like Phoneutria Fera was the first spreadshot hand cannon, and its perk pool, while it's like okay, it's not like amazing, right? Mint Retrograde doesn't really follow this formula. Like Rewind is insane on Rocket Pulses, and the other perks that it has are like class leading damage perks. It's really just missing like aggregate charge. So yeah, pretty good, and you should definitely pick one up while you have the chance. Okay. Next, we have some medium priority stuff. Return Memory. This is basically like a direct in-slot replacement for Aberrant Action. It has Heal Clip. It has Impulse for those of you that like, you know, just the feel of a fast reloading, fast traveling rocket sidearm. You have Lead from Gold, which is pretty nice. You have Impromptu, which is like okay. All the first column perks are like okay. They're pretty decent, right? You have Heal Clip, of course, you know, the essential. And then you have some other stuff here too, like Burning Ambition is okay on Rocket Sidearms because it's a special. So the Scorch Stacks and like the rate of application is pretty decent. You have Incandescent. A lot of people love Redirection as well. So yeah, just pick up, you know, a roll. I would say if I wanted to curate like a perfect roll, I'd probably go like Heal Clip, Impulse, Lead, Impulse just because like for speedrunning stuff. And then I would go probably Incand and Redirection. And honestly, you know, the remaining perks here, take your pick of the litter. I mean, maybe Desperate Measures or something like that. So, you know, it's pretty chill. Return Memory, just like a slot in, best in slot, just energy rocket sidearm. I would say Lotus Eater is also pretty important, but not super easy to farm right now until Bungie returns a method for getting like some of those older Nightfall weapons. I personally also don't have a good Lotus Eater, so I'm kind of in the same boat. But you know, those avoid perks are definitely pretty powerful, and can be arguably better than some of this stuff as well, even if it's not new/featured gear. Okay, our final medium priority special weapon is going to be Theodolite. This is really just for movement stuff. Yeah, I'm not really going to recommend micro missile GLs for damage. Like they're fine, but you know, in a slot where you have stuff like Stillhunt and Choir and all this other stuff, there's not really a reason to use Theodolite for non-movement purposes. That being said, it is the energy mounted top and it comes with Reconstruction, a luxury that mounted top does not have access to. So yeah, Reconstruction is pretty cool. I personally run like a Reconstruction Frenzy on mine. You can run other stuff too. It's just really nice having honestly a Reconstruction micro missile. So, you know, get your hands on it. You know, if you are a big fan of like vertical movement, it's pretty helpful. Next we have Unfall, I believe is how you say it. This is low priority, not because it's like a rocket item or anything like that, but it's arc and the perks are just like not that great. It's really for like, I swapped to Unfall like when I was doing like epic TP because like one of the encounters had arc shielded minotaurs. Like I think it was, yeah, epic wyvern has arc shielded minotaurs. So I swapped to this so it had an easier time breaking the shield and I could proc shield break charge. Like that is the extent of using this weapon, to be honest with you. So yeah, jolting feedback, not like insanely amazing on this weapon, takes multiple shots to proc. The ads are probably already dead by the time you shoot them this many times. You have like Master of Arms, which is decent. I think I run like Lead Master of Arms or like Impulse Master of Arms or something like that. So I don't know, it has some niche roles on it, but nothing crazy standout or anything like that. So pretty decent, but you know, not anything too crazy. We got Lionfish. This is just like the Riptide replacement. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there might be better fusions in the future after the fusion buffs. Obviously, Rapids are going to be not lagging behind the pack, but not super like in the spotlight anymore. So we might get high impact fusions next season, you know, after the buff that are going to take this thing to spotlight. I'm not sure yet, but you have stuff like Reconstruction, Chill Clip, Controlled Burst, Honing, you know, your classics. Best current kinetic slot damage fusion. So if you want to get your hands on that, that's important. But fusions, not super important these days, to be honest. It's like a weapon like this would be recommended to like a tractor user back in the day for like a low man or a solo or even like a day one. And then these days there's this funny little weapon that I've highlighted over here. It's called Mint Retrograde, which has kind of absolutely demolished any reason for like a tractor user to take Lionfish. So I mean, it's an option, right? It's an option. You know, it's a nice chill clip option for like utility stuff, but it's not that important. Okay. So next we have Finite Maybe. Aggressive fusions are receiving a small, I know some people were hyped, but it's a small buff next season. But this is probably the best, not probably, this is definitely the best aggressive fusion in the game. You have like Recon Bait, you have Recon Controlled Burst, you have Recon Reservoir Burst, that's also an option. You have some weird options on here like Lead, Incandescent Discord, I don't know, some weird stuff going on here. Mostly you're going to be using this for damage. I will say aggressive fusions, even after all their changes, they are still very awkward to use against bosses where you can't just like face tank the entire boss's hitbox. You definitely do miss bolts on this archetype a lot more compared to your typical like rapid or high impact fusion. So that is something to be aware of. But you know, if you want to spend time in TDP and you're looking for a weapon to hold on to, like Finite Maybe is one of those weapons that you could hold on to. But it's again, low priority. Okay, our last special to talk about here is Pure Recollection. This weapon has been receiving some attention for, I would think, like Master Nezarec, like solo Master Nezarec. People have been wanting like the Envious Bait roll because it's a nice energy slot weapon that surge matches the Sanguine effect when you're on Nova Bomb. But, you know, that's pretty niche. For the average player, I would say, I don't know. I mean, this is, again, it's in low priority for a reason. Double fire shotguns, heavy burst shotguns, they're not like super important or anything. Like they have a solid damage profile, but, you know, Arcane Embrace is definitely better perk-wise than this. And, you know, this weapon is just here because, I don't know, I thought I'd mention it. You know, it's getting some use in endgame communities, but I don't think it's super important that you have one. Another use in speedrunning is like, it has ricochet rounds and regular slugs. I think if you have 100 health, they don't one-shot you if you shoot a wall with ricochet rounds, but heavy burst slugs, they do one-shot you. Well, I guess two-shot if you count like both parts of the burst, but they do one-shot you. So in speedrunning, we use this to shoot walls and die instantly. After the exterior changes. So that's another use for it, but I don't know, if you're not a speedrunner, if you're not doing solo Master Nezarec, this is definitely not at the top of your shopping list. Okay, let's talk about the heavy weapons next. We have 4 of them. Heavy weapon wise, Synanceia. Synanceia, you know, we're gearing up for an interesting season, you know, with Renegades, and you know, there's a variety of damage options that could be potentially good. Synanceia, of course, has Eager Edge. It's the only new gear Eager Edge sword. So if you're coming back to the game and you want to do something like, you know, Hypernet Current or like Avalon, you know, those ultimate conquests, and you want to have access to a sword with Eager, you're going to have to take Synanceia. So definitely get a roll with Eager. If you're looking for a damage roll, Synanceia also happens to be pretty good for damage. You know, heavy waves or the wave sword frame, I should say, they're pretty good for damage, right? So I would say if you know, right now with Call to Arms, it's very, very easy to farm Synanceia. And I would say the role you should probably go for is like Relentless, Attrition, Sharp Harvest, and Eager, Honing, and then, I don't know, I guess Surrounded. I mean, the other perks are not that appealing. Yeah, so this is basically like a perfect Synanceia if you want to go for one. And then obviously you want to go for like Jagged Edge, and then maybe a Blade that kind of balances out so you don't have to take a mag perk and maybe take a damage volatile mod instead. But again, that's kind of preference, doesn't matter too much. So yeah, that's Synanceia. Again, easy to farm from Call to Arms right now. If you're interested in Synanceia or this next weapon, Submersion, which was formerly very, very annoying to get. Submersion used to be an RNG event drop where basically it was like I think some people were calling it the rarest weapon in Destiny. It kind of was for a time because this thing would drop like once an event, basically. So now you can completely focus it, and every time you do like assault mines or whatever, you're basically guaranteed a drop. And so Submersion, really, really easy to farm. If you want the perfect roll, you're looking for, well, I mean, you can go for multiple perks in the first column. I think auto is the best one in the first column, but there's multiple. You can go for auto, impulse, or bolt. Impulse obviously allows you to just have faster reload just off the rip with a reload duration multiplier, which is quite nice on heavy bows. You have bolt scavenger, which is like for longer phases, bolt scavenger bypasses the reload cap of heavy bows, so that can be pretty noticeable as well. I think for rotations, for like high level players, autoloading is still going to be the best option. And then in the right side, you really just want aggregate. I mean, if you really want like some other perks that you could take, I don't know, maybe chill clip is kind of funny, but nothing else really stands out here. You're really just going to look for auto aggregate, and then if you get impulse or bolt as like a perk swap, that's nice along the way. And then you want charged bolts, which I believe is, yeah, that's this one. You want charge bolts. Charge bolts is the best bolt right now. I didn't really make a video on heavy bows yet. I maybe will, maybe next season with more testing. But yeah, charge bolts, these are the best bolt option that you can get on heavy bows. I tested every single bow option. Charge bolts are just, you know, the DOT is pretty potent, and there's no like downside, I guess. Like heavy bolts, they're not like, you know, they don't waste any of their damage potential, like staggering enemies or anything like that. So yeah, not explosive bolts anymore like in the days of Temporal Blast. You should be going for charge bolts. And then the rest of your bow, I would spec for reload. Persistence is not really necessary or any of that stuff. Just go for reload, really. So that is it for Submersion. Oh yeah, and the whole reason why I'm even mentioning heavy bows, by the way, why this is like in the medium category and not low, because you might have, you know, been saying like, oh yeah, aren't heavy bows like pretty bad? Like weren't they, you know, with the Temporal Blast nerf, didn't they just become irrelevant? We've been doing some retesting and simulating some numbers recently, and heavy bows actually have very high swap DPS, like rivaling or beating rockets. So they definitely need some crafting to go into them for them to be very good. Like just if you just shoot the bow and you just like reload it manually, it's not that good. But if you add in some stuff like, you know, hierarchy and some reload assist, could potentially be good. So we're going to look more into that in Renegades, and also probably toward the end of this season as well. But I think you may as well get it because it's like really easy to farm. So may as well get yourself a copy just in case it ends up being good. And it's certainly better than Opaque Hourglass, by the way, which you might notice is not here because Opaque Hourglass is harder to farm and also worse. Okay, last two heavy weapons. We have Unwavering Duty, which is an adaptive frame machine gun. This has like a whole host of perks that are pretty decent from trials. You have 4 times a charm target lock, which is a good super generator option. Just good for long range bosses like Corregos, Epic Corregos, you know, the Sky Phase. A lot of people were bringing this that I know of, and they had some success with it. So this is an option in that regard. And then just for ad clear, you know, it has Rampage in the first column. And for those of you who haven't been paying attention to the weapon tuning stuff and the articles, Rampage is getting reworked to have multiple like stacking tiers that don't degrade all of your stacks at the same time. So if you're at tier 3 of Rampage and you lose your timer, it goes down to tier 2, which makes Rampage a lot more viable. Obviously, you know, you lose out on a reload perk like autoloading, but makes it potentially interesting. You can run like Rampage, Killing Tally, and have a lot of, you know, stopping power with this machine gun. Okay, the last heavy weapon I want to talk about is technically like twofold. So we have Outrageous Fortune, but this is also technically like the ever-present slot as well. The only reason I don't mention the ever-present is because, in my opinion, heavy GLs are like very far removed from the current meta of Destiny. And given that we already received a weapon tuning article, it doesn't look like the place of heavy GLs is going to change in the next DLC, at least upon launch. And so if that is the case, then heavy GLs are in one of the worst spots they've been in a while. So unless you're like a solo player and you're like trying to, you know, surge match Still Hunt or something for like a solo challenge, and you obviously don't have galley, yeah, Outrageous Fortune, not great. And even in those situations, people kind of tend to use Hezen. So yeah, Outrageous Fortune, if you want the role, probably just like Envious Bait, right? Envious Bait. You know, you can go for, I think you can go for Spike on Outrageous Fortune because it has like a really weird, absurdly high mag stat. So you can go for Spike, and then you can still run like a volatile mod. And yeah, you can see it's like 7 in the mag here, even without like backup mag. So you can run Spike. On the other hand, we have the Ever-Present, which I'll load it up here just cause. This has aggregate charge, which is better. I believe they're the same frame, but this has aggregate charge. On this weapon, I believe my friend Spider has told me not to do Spike because I think the total damage is pretty similar whether you run Spike or not, because running stuff like augmented drums or mini frags increases your reserves, increases your mag size to 7, and the DPS change isn't too much either, right? Like I ran Spike and I ran the 5 mag and I just swapped more often because having aggregate charge means that you don't really need to keep track of your bait timer as much. But you know, for like regular use, I would just recommend like augmented drums or mini frags. But again, I would not go out of your way to farm for a heavy GL at this moment. The only reason I even mentioned Outrageous Fortune here is because it might not be available next season. I'm not sure what they're going to do to portal weapons. So just in case, you can get one, but certainly you're probably not going to be regretting it if you don't. Okay, I don't have any pictures for this last bit, but these are the 5 armor sets that I think you should look into at least before Renegades comes out, because Renegades obviously will bring a whole host of other armor sets, and I'm not sure whether stuff like Smoke Jumper or Bushido will still be available in the portal pool once these new, portal armor sets come out. So first, in high priority, to nobody's surprise if you're playing the game right now, Ion Adapter and Smoke Jumper. Ion Adapter is first because it is the easiest to farm by far. You just need to finish Kepler Mythic, get up to 450 power, which is a fairly reasonable ask in today's age, and then just go to the loot cave. So I have some videos on my Clips channel if you're curious about like how to farm the armor. It's basically just put on galley and shoot the ads with 200 weapons and a bunch of mods to get galley ammo back, basically. But yeah, there's a bunch of orange bars that just respawn in this area in Kepler, and they just drop, Kepler focus stuff like candy. So, get yourself a Ion Adapter set. Pretty important. Splash GR is pretty universal in this game. Smoke Jumper, this comes from the portal, from solo and fire team ops, I believe. Also pretty good, right? These two are just solid neutral combination for just surviving during damage, because a lot of people are making orbs during damage, and for surviving during mechanics. There are some places though, however, where you may not be able to constantly pick up orbs while you're roaming around. You're maybe not running an attrition orb as primary, or you're not playing Titan or Hunter, two classes that have access to spamming melees, or maybe you're playing Prismatic Hunter off of Combination Blow, and you're running like Threaded Spike instead. Then you're not going to be, shitting out orbs at the same rate as like a Titan on Knockout, or like a Hunter that's on Combination Blow. If that's the case, then you might want to sub out Smoke Jumper for something else. There's some other options here that you can look at. Bushido, pretty decent. That's a good substitute for just neutral play. Collective Psyche. I know some Prismatic Hunter players are a big fan of Collective Psyche when they run Threaded Spike, because it increases the sever duration of your Threaded Spike to 15 seconds, which can be very helpful. And then it obviously increases the effect of Facet of Purposes Restoration by I think like 2 seconds. It goes from like 4 to 6 or something like that. So that's obviously pretty noticeable as well. So if you're a Prismatic Hunter that's like not playing Combination Blow, I would also look into 4-piece Collective Psyche. Decent kind of double duty set bonus there. And then finally, TechSec. TechSec, we've received some hints, obviously, through the past couple articles with Bungie saying, we're reworking Kinetic Disorient to become a universal effect. And usually when Bungie does stuff like this, I don't want to say usually, it's like pretty much always, whenever Bungie tells you that they're going to rework a part of the sandbox and that you should pay attention to it because we're going to unify this or make this into like this effect, usually the next season, they try to reinforce that idea. So next season, I would expect kinetic weapons to receive some sort of focus, or for kinetic effects like Disorient to receive some sort of focus. And so TechSec, just, out of caution here, I'm going to recommend it. Because the 4-piece set bonus, if you're willing to build into like a glaive melee build or like a kinetic weapon build, is pretty noticeable, even if it is kind of situational. So that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. I mean, really, Ion Smoke should cover you for the most part, but if you want and you got some extra time, there's some other set bonuses that are potentially interesting. So yeah, that's basically it. That's my thoughts on the current Edge of Fate weapons. I didn't really cover weapons that are craftable from previous seasons or from previous seasons in general, like season 26, 25 stuff. Because a lot of that stuff is not accessible right now or not farmable very easily. And if it is, it's like power crept by the stuff that is on your screen right now. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Good luck farming. I wanted to get this video out a little early. I was going to do like a slideshow for this video and make it like a little bit more professional, but I wanted to prioritize being early first because some of these weapons like Submersion and Synanceia are obtainable from Call to Arms, and that is an event that is ending in like 3 or 4 days. So I wanted to get this out early, and a lot of people were asking for it. So that's pretty much it. The next video is probably going to be about analyzing a lot of the damage testing that I've been doing this season, because I know I haven't made like a damage rotation ranking this season outside of like for the day 1 stuff. And that's because there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of stuff. I've tested a lot of stuff. So I'm going to go over all my results and give my brief summary of what I think the meta is going to be like heading into Renegades. I'll try to scrap together like a damage rotation ranking, like a scuffed one, not like 40 rotations, maybe like 15 or 10 before Renegades comes out. And then, yeah, that'll be it. And I'll see you guys in Renegades and my videos. If you guys are not aware, I did go to the Bungie creator capture event. So if you're looking forward to those videos and you haven't seen my Discord announcement, those will be out on the 26th, around when the TWID launches. So there'll be like a weapons video, there'll be an armor video on the 27th, and then there'll be a gameplay video on the 28th. So that is pretty much it. And, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys around.